Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. This is your host, Brittany, and today we are joined by Emmy. She is a repeat guest, mother of Archie, who is at my house right now. You guys might follow him on social media, Positively Archie. So Emmy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So we are talking about anticipatory grief and preparing for the loss of a dog. So I don't think a lot of people think about this until it happens to them. Mm-hmm. And I think it can happen with humans and having anticipatory grief, but it feels different when it's your dog, your daily companion. Yeah. Especially when you're put in a situation where you know that loss is imminent. Mm-hmm. So I know both of us have lost pets and have gone through this, that pre-grieving period. Mm-hmm. So it is hard to prepare for loss. And even if you hear people say, well, at least you knew it was coming or something like that, it doesn't make it any easier. Sure. Doesn't make it any better. And so I can think of my dog in 2016. She was diagnosed with cancer. Mm-hmm. I feel like the anticipatory grief started then, even though I didn't know how long. It was like, I know that this is close to the end. Like, I have a timeline. I just don't know it. Yeah. And then as we started doing cancer treatments and they weren't working, it became more and more apparent to me, like the time is about to come, you know? Mm-hmm. So I felt like I was grieving that loss for the 7 months that we battled cancer. Yeah. And it didn't make the day it finally happened, didn't make it any easier.
Yeah. I always told people I felt like there's the book of grieving, and the anticipatory grief was like a prolonged, unwelcomed prologue. Yeah. It kind of made it worse.
Yeah, it does.
I remember being jealous of seeing that a friend's dog passed suddenly. I'm like, isn't that nice? And who would ever think you would feel that way? I was like, I hate seeing and knowing and anticipating it, and then all of the everything that goes with it. So it's a weird headspace to be in.
Yeah, for sure. So for anyone that doesn't know, do you want to explain anticipatory grief?
Yeah. So from my experience, I know some can feel it whenever their dog is aging. Mm-hmm. And then, my soul dog was older, but it was kind of brought on by a cancer diagnosis. So it's just the waiting. To me, I was like, I feel I'm just waiting for the door to be slung open, and I don't want it to open yet. So it's just the waiting, and then all of the decisions, and you're altering routines to make quality of life depending on how we go about. So with my boy, he was too old. It wasn't suggested that we do treatments just because of his age and whatnot. So it's monitoring quality of life, and just to me, it's like hospice care in a way.
It is, yeah.
Just for a pet, not a human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You talked about dogs that are aging. You see it all the time. I see it on social media where people are like, oh, I'm crying about losing my dog. And then they pan to their dog, and their dog's only 5 years old.
Yeah, I had those moments when he was 6.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, this is going to suck. I know it's going to happen one day. And I'm like, so I was like, that was years before any diagnosis.
Right. Yeah, and you even try to tell yourself well, I bet my dog lives longer than any other dog. You start making things up, and you're like, well, I did all these things. I'm sure it won't happen. Sure. Trying to be in this state of denial, which is kind of interesting. So what are some of the emotions that you felt? You got that cancer diagnosis, and what did you start feeling?
Well, what was interesting was that I had read somewhere, they're like, well, don't show sadness because then they're going to sense your sadness. But I had the opposite mindset. I was like, this is so consuming. Like they sense distress even if there's not a tear on your face.
Right.
So like that was one thing that I had to be mindful of like not feeling guilty to make space for my emotions. It was like he's gonna sense it whether I'm like fake laughing or not. So that was like one thing where the sadness is like, it's okay to cry in front of the dog. Like they're gonna sense it whether or not you have a moment.
Yeah, they know if you're faking it.
Yeah, exactly.
Know?
And so that was one thing I read over and over again. That would make me mad. I'm like, don't tell me not to be sad when this dog has moved 7 times with me. Like he was the dog that I moved out with when I was on my own. I was like, I'm not gonna be happy.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
So like making space for being sad and not feeling guilty. And then like anxiety. Like, I was very mindful of what I was watching. So I was like, I can't watch anything like too dramatic or sad or scary or anything that could like touch on it. So like just a lot of mindfulness of like kind of the stages and the emotions. So like lots of sadness, lots of anxiety. And then depending on like what course you take or like just in general, like the brain fog that goes with it. Like, I remember I was like, at the time I co-owned a business and I told my business partners, I'm like, hey, I want to be transparent. Like what I have, I may need to take a step back, like before and after, I don't know where I'm going to be. So I think it was just a lot of being self-aware of how you respond to stress so that you don't feel guilty for neglecting your own responsibilities or just simply being transparent for those around you, just so that I remember being like, I don't want to go through this and be regretful of like what I put on the like back burner. Like I want to make sure that this isn't a chapter that I'm like bitter towards down the road. So I think it's helpful just to kind of be mindful of like how you respond to certain things, which kind of helps.
I think it's interesting you kind of talk about putting things in the back burner. I felt so much guilt, like if I went to work or when I went to the gym. And so I started working out only at home, which wasn't necessarily the best thing for me. I don't regret it, but I look back and I'm like, wow, I really shifted my life. I didn't really like go to too many dinners. And if I went to dinner, I was just like,
I take a break. There were some times where like my brother had like a jujitsu meet, like I'd be like, hey, I'm going to be gone for 45 minutes because I need to check on him. And they understood. Right. Like, so even being like, listen, or I had like a roommate that I kind of leaned on like, or will you be home during this time? And then I was even thinking, I was like, I really had the luxury of having that flexibility because not everyone's able to. Like I was childless. Like sometimes you simply don't have the bandwidth or the luxury to be able to do that. So like I was thinking back on it, I was like, if I were to walk through that journey with different sets of obligations, I think it would be wise, like, hey, dog sitters or dog walkers, because I mean my boy had to go out to the bathroom every 45 minutes. So like luckily I was able to bring him to work, but like sometimes outsourcing it, so like dog walkers where they even just do like a home visit. So I feel like that's some ways to kind of help make things smoother and a little bit more balanced if you don't have the luxury of doing that.
Yeah. And like you said, just communicating with those around you and letting them know the extent of your feelings. Like this isn't just a little bit of sadness or a little bit of anger. Like this is like kind of my whole life right now. And a lot of people can't understand that. And I think it's important, like during these times, if you have people who are truly not listening or hearing you, and if they don't care, I think you've just shown yourself that that's probably not a friend. You know what I mean? Like I hate to say that, but it was eye-opening, the different approaches that people took. And, you know, not everyone loves their dogs as much as us or even have dogs or maybe they don't have that emotional capacity. But for me, there were certain people that I was like, wow, like, you really just can't even pretend to care. And so I just had to distance myself from them, you know?
Well, and another thing is that back then it was really hard for me to feel comfortable being vulnerable. And to me, it was all consuming. I felt guilty talking about my dying dog all the time. So one of the things that was helpful is I was like looking on Facebook and there was a Facebook group for like terminally ill pets. And it wasn't very active, but I made it active because I felt more comfortable word vomiting there because I know it's welcomed and it's expected. Like, I was like, my friends also have X, Y, and Z happening as well. And I felt like a rain cloud all the time. Like, I'm always going to sprinkle and I'm like, oh yeah, well, my dying dog. Like, I was like finding like a support group in that way. Like, even if it's not active, you make it active. And it just like kind of helped me had a place to catch my words.
Yeah. And then, so you have all of that anticipatory grief with respect to like, the time is going to happen. And then you have that like grief or fear or anxiety of making the final decision, which I don't know if you had to make that decision, but we sort of did. And I made the decision, and I had one of my part-timers, I was a manager at a vitamin shop. I had her make the call, and then I had her call back and cancel. Because I was like, no, like I'm jumping the gun. It's too soon. And then Chloe was in acupuncture, and I took her in. Her acupuncturist, who's a vet, started to cry. And she was like, hey, it's time. Like, you need to make the call. And I was like, I can't. And so she actually called for me, call number 2, and set it up. And we did it in home. So that made it, I don't want to say better because that sounds awful, but it was just easier. You're at home. You're more comfortable. Your dog is comfortable. Yeah. Just being like in a foreign place with a sterile room and like a cold table, just, it didn't seem suitable. Yeah, so
for sure.
I guess to an extent, like being able to make that decision is somewhat of a luxury as well. Like, you know, I don't know what your experience was with making that final call.
Well, so what's interesting is, so one of the things that was kind of like my pillars for gearing where his quality of life was like appetite, going to the restroom, and mobility. And what's so ironic is that my boy didn't show any of it, but the tumor was getting so big. I was like, he has to be in discomfort. There's no way he's not. Like, he's starting to look like Megamind. Morbid. Yeah. But true. Right. And then so I swear, once I made that decision, he stopped masking his discomfort. Yeah. And who would have guessed? And so I knew that once I made that decision, I was going to be a mess. So one of the things that I had planned beforehand is like, I wanted to make sure he had chocolate before he passed. So, and I didn't want to be rushing to the store crying, getting Reese's. So like I bought that and stashed it in the back of my closet like 2 months before. Yeah. And then there were like a few, what were some of the other things? Like, I knew that I was going to have visual triggers. So I already kind of had an idea of what I was going to do with X, Y, and Z. So
that's a good idea.
Like, and it was the worst timing. The week after he passed, I was moving into a smaller space and he was a 60-pound dog. Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to make space for a dog bed and all of this. So I kind of had an idea of where I was going to, like, I sent some of his stuff to my sister or to like his best friend. Like, that way I didn't feel like, oh, I'm just donating it to Goodwill. But I was like, I don't need the visual reminder of him. So, cause I know it's going to be on my mind all the time. Right. But so like having an idea like that. So like when the hospice vet came, I asked her to take the dog bed with her. Like, so just, I think those kind of helped. And I had already like, I was very fortunate. Someone donated a hospice vet bill. Oh, wow. Essentially, because I was sharing through social media. I'm like, have you heard of this? I was like, yeah. I was like, luckily some friends very graciously fundraised for him, but he kept on living. So all the money went to like quality of life medicine. Yeah. And then like, listen, I'm welcome to like pay for it, which was such a blessing. But like, even just calling those hospice vets before so that you don't have to explain it. Right. So I think just a lot of planning can help relieve a lot of awkward conversations if you're not comfortable being vulnerable and if you don't want to be a blubbering mess, because I'm single. I'm the one who would have been making the call or sending the text. So like having a little bit of a plan of like, and not feel guilty that I didn't have like the treats I wanted to give him. So I think that really does help ease, like the worst day. So
I've had friends, like the friends that it happened somewhat sudden for, like text me from the vet, like it's happening, go to my house, get everything out. And so I've gone in and I've scrubbed the house for toys, beds, bowls, treats, even meds that they were on. Like, so I think even maybe having that kind of conversation with a friend, and, you know, we don't like to talk about death, but it is the one thing that's inevitable.
Yeah.
And I think as a society, we need to get a little bit better talking about death. We need to get more comfortable with it, so it's not so jarring and shocking, and that way too we don't feel so alone, you know, like
for sure
we talk about it more, we have more support, and you know, you can hear from other people who feel the same way that you do.
For sure.
So let's talk about some tips and strategies for kind of managing your anticipatory grief, and you can kind of talk about generalities, or you can talk about things that you did. What are some tips that you have?
For me, I binged watched 10 seasons of the Kardashians. Like, it was something to completely disassociate. For now, when I see the Kardashians, I think of my dead dog.
Oh, yeah.
But like, it was just something that I couldn't relate to. It was a complete dissociation. So like, just finding a way to like get out of your head. For me, it was binge watching at the time. I know for some it's like reading. Now I read. Back then I didn't have the bandwidth. Right. And then what was some other things? Another thing is that I have high expectations of myself. So I was like, usually I have a 15-step like skincare routine. I was like, listen, I need to be happy if I just wash my face. Right. Like, sometimes just altering expectations and like your workload. Like, there was I had like a side job at the time. I was like, listen, I'm gonna have to put this on hold. Like, if it's not optional, if it's not like required, like I'm taking a step back, I hope you understand. They're like, absolutely. So I think just being mindful of your bandwidth and just being very transparent. Like, if you can lighten your load a little bit because you're adding more to it, can help. But at the same time, balancing. So like, there were times that I would have like my roommate at the time stay home if like my friend invited me out somewhere. I was like, will you be home most of the time? Like, there was a time frame that I felt comfortable him being alone for a bit. But I think just being a lot of transparent and mindful of what you put on your plate, so you're not also drowning yourself.
See, I did the opposite. I purposely drowned myself. I made myself so busy. And I tried to keep the busyness at home. But at the time I was bodybuilding, and then I was like, well, let me also train for my first half marathon. Let me, you know, really immerse myself in work as much as I can from home while like trying to cut back on my hours. So like, I kept my days just so packed on purpose. Like, I get that. 100%. I apparently was the kind who was like, I just must bask in the sorrow. Apparently. I think it's good to know which one is better for you, because I think we're so different with like how we like to do things. Like, when I am more anxious or have like an overabundance of emotions, I'm more likely to put more on my plate. And if there's a therapist listening, please don't comment. But I just try to mask those emotions, push them down, and make everything else a priority. And that's probably not that healthy. But that is what has worked for me thus far. I can feel my emotions later in small little spurts,
I have friends that are just like that.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think, you know, you talked about being transparent, but also just like seeking support and being mindful of who you're seeking it from, because there's some people, you know, and they could still be great friends, great family. They're probably just not the people to go to.
Well, and at that time, one of my friends, there was a relative that was ill. So I knew, I was like, that's not going to be tasteful on my end either. Right. So it's one of those things, like, just being mindful of even what they're going through, because it can seem trivial. Depending on where people are at. Right. And it makes sense for different stages in life, for sure. So it's different, like a family member. And so I don't know, but dogs are also family members as
Yeah.
well. Like,
Yeah.
not downplaying that at all.
Right.
But just being mindful of like, well, they're also going through something. So even me saying like how, like where I'm at emotionally, that may trigger something in them. Like, you know, they may need a happy presence right now, and I'm not that.
Yeah. And so I think it's good to recognize that, because then you can kind of separate yourself from them to like make it healthier for the both of you, so you can sustain that friendship.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And then we already talked about kind of planning ahead. No one plans ahead for end of life for their dog. It's rare they even do it for humans. I mean, you see so many like GoFundMe's even for like a mom, a dad, an uncle, and then you've also got pets. And so planning ahead, I think there's so many layers to this. It's like knowing maybe where you want to go if you have that option, if you can do it in home, if you can do it elsewhere, knowing the cost. It's not that cheap.
Yeah.
So you do need to budget probably, which is a crazy thing to budget for. And then like you said, like knowing what you want to do with the stuff that's in the house that might trigger you or what have you.
Yep.
So yeah, I think kind of planning ahead. And I had a end of life pet photographer on a couple years ago, and she had a bunch of resources on her website. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name right now. Lauren Smith, I think. But she does a great job with like resources and groups. And then I've also had on Euthabag. And this is a little bit different, but Euthabag makes like the bags that your dog would go in if you were to bury them. It's something to think about. You know, you need to know, are you going to cremate? Are you going to bury them? Yeah, it's unpleasant, but it's something we need to think about.
Yeah. Well, and then circling back when you were talking about the end of life photographer, after my boy was diagnosed, a friend who used to do photography offered to do a celebration of life thing. And I would suggest, depending on like the type of illness, like I'm very glad that we did it earlier on.
Yeah.
Because it was before the tumor got too big.
Right.
So like, and those are probably one of my like most prized possessions, like the photos. So like that was as far as like circling back to like preparation. Like I know a lot of people that really like, they wish they had like quality photos of them and their dog. Cause I mean, I have a bunch of pictures of my dogs being dogs, but not as much of us with them. So like, I didn't have many, and now I have a little pocket of them. Yeah. So
I've gotten to take those photos a couple times. They're tough.
Oh yeah,
they're so tough to take.
They're tough,
especially if you know
the dog
and the
person.
So
the sweet angel who offered it, she couldn't bring herself to edit it, and at this time it was like 6 months after he had passed. So it was like I was like, I hate to, like, I know it was a gift, but will I ever get it? She's like, I'm so sorry. It's so hard to do them. Yeah. She's like, I literally sobbed every time I was editing it. Like, I'd have to take breaks. I'm like, I understand. I was like, I just didn't know if you forgot about it. She's like, she's like, I guess So, yeah. A labor of love for sure.
And let's go back to the dog itself. And you talked about quality of life. And that's measured in so many different ways. So for you, what were your 3 key points?
So my vet, one of the things that he said is like, of course, like the appetite and going to the restroom. But then he also suggested, like, think of 3 things that your dog likes to do, like a staple. And once you see there's disinterest, then that can be an indicator that you may need to go to the next step. Yeah. Again, my dog was literally a champ and didn't show anything. He was like, and I remember the day before I had like scheduled it, I swung by an old friend's house, and the husband made a very untasteful comment because he was eating. He was happy. He goes, "Wow, you're a quick hanger-upper." And I like blacked out. I was like, hey.
Oh, wow.
And
oh, wow.
But it was one of those things, like literally an hour later, he started showing, like, again, my dog knew that the time was coming, and then he stopped masking it. So again, it's something where also trusting your gut, because that, to me, that was like a stab to the heart. I'm like, what? And
that's anyone like, listening, please, like,
don't ever say that. He's like, he's eating it all up, and he was happy as could be. I'm like,
That's not what you say.
That's not what you say.
No.
But like, it's also like having, like, you know, your dog and you know your gut, like also trusting yourself with that decision.
Right.
Like I knew, to me, I looked at it as sparing him from inevitable pain. And that's what my vet was saying. It's like, it's not giving up, it's sparing him from suffering. And like the type of, he had bone cancer. So it's one of the more painful one, which was crazy because this tumor was huge and he was like, I'm fine. Yeah. I'm like, there's no way, you're fine, buddy. Right. Like your eye is about like to come out because it's putting so much pressure. So I think, but yeah, the gearing those three things, but like it was one of those things where I just had to make the call because he was doing all of the above. Well, even so like, it was wild.
Thinking about quality of life, I mean, like, you don't have to wait until the end where they're struggling so much.
Exactly.
Because having that as your last memory is not pleasant. You know
and then like for Max, like of course, like the last 12 hours were rough, but like he was still happy. He was still moving. He was still eating.
Right.
He was still like alert. And I was like, it's like for me personally, if I go to funerals, I can't go up to the casket because I don't want my last memory being of them not actually there. Yeah. So to me, it kind of translates to that as well. I was like, he was happy and he was watching birds fly outside. So like, it was still like, I know there was discomfort, but like he was still there. Yeah. And not like on death's door. And like that's how I would want him to pass, when he still like has like a little bit of life. Right. So
yeah, I think that's just respectful and just showing dignity. And like you said, it's not giving up. It's just, you know, it's the inevitable, but you're sparing them all of that suffering. Yeah, exactly. And you just don't know how much he was masking his pain. Exactly. And his uncomfortability.
And like, that was the perfect example. Like, he literally showed everything, but then once the decision was made, he's like, okay. Yeah. Like, let me just kind of be a little.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we, you know, talked a little bit about some changes. So like for us, we noticed that the tumor wasn't growing, but it had already taken up half of her chest cavity. And we noticed she was eating less. She was sleeping less. Her breathing was becoming a little more labored. Yeah. And so kind of those traditional things you think about. She was still eating, but not as much. She was still getting around. She was still going to the bathroom. Yeah. So some of those more traditional ideas, it's kind of important to rethink them how you did, because you might not see drastic changes that give you that final, like, okay, it's time.
And that one of the vets told me, is like, sometimes, I don't know if it was a vet or if it was something I read, that if you see that it, sometimes once you see the discomfort, you're too late in sparing them. And that again gave me a lot of like reassurance. Yeah. In light of that, like, that means they've been suffering a lot longer than you realize. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that made me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. And then let's talk about how anticipatory grief can make that post-loss grief more difficult. And I know for me, I don't know, there was like some anger. I'm not sure who that was placed at. Initially, it was kind of at the vets who missed the cancer for 6 months that I was like, sure, something's going on. Something's going on. And I finally was like, let's just do a chest x-ray. Like, and they were like, oh my gosh, there's a tumor like bigger than her liver. And I'm like, okay. Like, and I think that all came back because it was like, I just suffered all these months with her. And now she's gone, and now I'm directing my anger back at you guys, you know? I don't know if you had any kind of similar, like, feelings or what that, like, grief process looked like for you.
I wouldn't say it was as much anger. I think it was a lot more bitterness. Like, I remember one of my brother's friends had a dog that was similar in age, and she'd, like, post their dog. I'm like, her dog looks so much older, and Max was aging so gracefully. Yeah. I was like, so it was a little bit of bitterness that, like, comparing. So.
All right, let's take a break to make a phone call. And you're wondering, who are you calling? So I'm going to call a golden retriever. And this is on Regal AI. It's a company that builds AI agents for brands, and they've built an AI dog hotline. So just wait till you hear how good this sounds. So there's 15 different breeds that you can call. And so today we're going to call a golden retriever. And if you want to call personally at home, the golden retriever's phone number is 567-749-5608. And if you want to look for a different breed, you can go to regal.ai/dog. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's call.
Yo, I'm your golden retriever, and I'm thrilled to finally be speaking human. Can you remind me how to say my name? I want to make sure I say it perfectly.
Fluffy.
That's right. I love when you call me Fluffy. So what are you planning to do with me this weekend?
We're going to go to the beach.
Sweet. The beach is like my happy place. Are we bringing any tasty treats or a frisbee to play with?
We're going to bring a tennis ball.
Awesome. I could chase that tennis ball forever. By the way, what do you think makes it more fun, throwing it or watching me do my epic splashes in the water?
Watching you splash in the water.
Oh yeah, I'm like a majestic dolphin out there. Do you ever catch me mid-splash with your phone? I'd love to see those epic shots.
Of course, I can post those on social media.
Audacious. I can't wait to be a star. Speaking of fun, did you see what the neighbor's dog was barking about the other day? That pup is always up to something.
Yeah, he's always up to something, but I don't know what it was.
Classic neighbor dog shenanigans. Maybe he's just trying to say hi in his own wild way. So, what's something funny that happened to you this week? I love to hear about your adventures.
Well, I stepped in one of your messes in the yard that needed to be picked up. So that, I mean, it wasn't really fun, but it was a shenanigan.
Oh no, sorry about that. I guess I can be a little messy sometimes. Just think of it as my way of keeping the yard interesting. By the way, what's for dinner tonight? I'm hoping for something super tasty.
It's probably going to be kibble.
Kibble, huh? That's cool. I'm always down for that. Do you think I should spice it up with some special toppings?
Maybe.
Sounds like a plan. A little flavor goes a long way. All right, dude. I'm off to dream about catching some gnarly waves. Can't wait to hang out more soon.
All right. So wasn't that wild? So as you can imagine, Regal AI builds AI agents for all kinds of businesses. If you want to learn more about what Regal AI can do for you or a friend's business, check them out at regal.ai. You can also check out any of the 15 dog breed hotlines for yourself for free at regal.ai/dog. Okay, so you mentioned the end-of-life pet photography, which you did early, which is so smart to do. Are there any other suggestions or even things that you did to honor your dog?
Why am I blanking? What were some of the things you did to trigger?
I look back and my friends did most of it. I was really lucky with the friends I had at that time. So obviously I got her cremated, so I have her in a little container, like a little ashes thing.
Yes.
And I still like want to get jewelry made, like a ring or a necklace.
Yes, okay.
That was 2017. I still haven't done it.
So one of the things that like brought a lot of comfort is that like before he passed, I did like paw prints.
Yeah.
So like I had like this really pretty picture. So like beforehand, I like ordered a few pictures of like him, and then like all of our close family or people that like loved him, I gave them like a picture and a paw print.
Oh, cute.
To give to them, because to me it felt like he wasn't just gone. So that like helped me. And then like I was moving, and so like I didn't have the visual triggers, but I also didn't want a place where he wasn't there. And I didn't want to keep the ashes because in my mind, because I move so much, I'm like, I don't want the possibility of losing the ashes and going through it again. Like, just knowing myself, like, that's going to be a lingering worry. Like, wait, where's Max? Yeah. Like, I can't do this again. Yeah. So that was like one thing. Like, I have like pictures from like the photo shoot, or like his paw prints is like saved. And then one of my friends, she went somewhere and there was like a keychain where it was like a bone saying I love Max. Oh, cute. And the week that he was passing, it fell off of my keychain, and I was like, of course oh my gosh. And it had fallen in my car. And so like now I have it like in my car because he always went to work with me. Like I was like, so he's still going on car rides for me. So like to me, it just like those physical mementos like helped where I wasn't erasing him. Right. So
yeah, I had a friend order a photo. She had downloaded it from Facebook, but it was like a photo of like me and my husband and our dogs, and I still have it. It's in the guest bedroom. And then I had another friend order like it's like a stone. I actually have it in my office, and it says, I can't think of the quote that's on it. Oh gosh, there's one more thing that someone sent me. Oh, I can't remember it right now. But I've seen some really cute ideas. Like recently a friend lost her dog, and I got her, he loved to lay in the sun. Her dog did. So I got her like a little, I don't even know what those are called. They're like a little glass ball that kind of like reflects like rainbow, and it's a little paw print, like a little glass paw print. So I got that for her. One friend, I had a blanket made, and it had a bunch of like her dog's photos on it. And I know I've done one more thing that was creative, but I think if your best friend or someone very close to you loses their dog, just know they'll appreciate like anything, you know, like not saying you have to, but if you're thinking about it and you're like, I don't know if I should, you should.
And like that's another thing. Like I even feel like for me, I felt self-conscious at the caliber of the guilt that of grief that I had, because I was like, I know friends who have lost their parents, but then like it was one thing that like kind of helped me alleviate that grief is that like the relationship with a dog, like it's unconditional love. Like that's like true, it's a companion that's just there. They don't give you grief, they don't talk back. Like in like for my experience, it was just like a constant state of reliability and consistency during your 20s when you're trying to figure out who you are. So that helped alleviate it. But yeah, that was one thing that I was like, well, why do I feel this bad? But that always kind of, you're like, well, I mean, there's a reason.
Right.
So
I felt the same way. I mean, the grief was just so heavy, but she had been with me high school, college, law school, like starting to practice law, like so many phases of my life, every single day. And like, there's no one else or nothing else that you are with so often. And I think until you've experienced that loss, I just don't think you can understand it.
And that was one of the things I was like, you're people who don't, like, we're lucky that we experience that caliber. Because again, not everyone has those type of bonds with their pets. So that was another thing that was like, well, I'm lucky that I had that kind of bond, that I'm grieving this much. And whatnot. Well, thank you for coming on to talk about this subject. I know it's difficult, but again, it's something that we have to talk about. So thank you so much. Of course.
Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com, or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.